It's time, Adaize. You have to choose. It's either you choose her or you choose me, your mom.
She stood at the river's edge, holding her 7-year-old daughter's hand, and the mermaid said, "It's time, Adaize. You have to choose. Choose between keeping her child in a world that was killing her slowly, or giving her to the river forever." And Naoma looked up at her mother, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Mama, I hear her singing. It's so beautiful, but I don't want to leave you." 7 years earlier, Adaize had saved a silver fish from drowning. It wasn't a fish, it was a spirit, and the blessing it gave her came with a debt she never knew she owed, until the night her daughter's shadow stopped following her and started swimming instead. This is the story of what happens when you show mercy to something you don't understand, when love means sacrifice, and when the river remembers every kindness and every promise. Don't skip ahead, because what happens next will make you understand why some mothers have to let go to truly love. They said the River of Whispers never gave back what it took. But on the night Adaize's daughter turned 7, something impossible happened. The child's shadow stopped following her feet. Instead, it pooled beneath her like water, rippling with a life of its own. And when Adaize knelt to touch it, the shadow whispered a name she had not heard in 7 years. A name that belonged to the river. This is the story of a woman who saved a life she didn't understand, and the blessing that changed her forever. A story of love, sacrifice, and the thin veil between two worlds. A story that begins not with magic, but with mercy. What debt do you owe a spirit that gives you a child? And what happens when that child begins to remember a home beneath the waves? Stay with me. Because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about destiny. Before we go further, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt called by water? Have you ever stood at the edge of a river or ocean and felt like something was watching you? Not with malice, but with recognition? As if the water knew you before you knew yourself. Because that's what happened to Adaize. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why some blessings arrive wrapped in mystery, and why the river never forgets a kindness. The questions we must answer are these. Why did the mermaid choose her? What does it mean for a child to change? And what happens when the agreement between humans and spirits is broken, not by cruelty, but by love? Some gifts from the river are blessings. Others are warnings. And sometimes, they are both. Adaize lived in a village where the river was older than memory. The elders called it the River of Whispers, because on certain nights, if you listened closely, you could hear voices rising from the depths. Songs in languages no one spoke anymore. Laughter that sounded like children playing, though no children ever swam there after dark. The villagers respected the river. They left offerings of fruit and flowers at its edge. They never fished on the new moon, and they warned their daughters never to answer if they heard their names called from the water. Adaize knew these rules. She had grown up hearing them, but she also knew loneliness, and loneliness has a way of making people forget caution. She was 32 and childless, not by choice, but by fate. 3 years earlier, her husband had drowned in that very river, swept away during a storm while trying to save a neighbor's boat. His body was never found. The village whispered that the river had claimed him, that he belonged to the water now. And in their whispers, there was an unspoken belief that Adaize was marked by the same fate. She lived alone in a small house near the riverbank. She wove baskets to sell at the market. She sang to herself while she worked. And every evening, she walked to the water's edge, not to mourn, but to feel close to something vast and alive. She never expected the river to answer. It started with dreams. Dreams of a woman with skin like polished stone, eyes the color of deep water, and hair that moved as if it were still submerged. The woman never spoke in the dreams. She only watched Adaize with an expression that was neither kind nor cruel, but deeply, impossibly sad. Adaize woke from these dreams with her pillow damp, though she couldn't remember crying. Then one night, the river began to glow. It was subtle at first, a faint shimmer beneath the surface, like moonlight trapped in the current. Adayez thought she was imagining it. But night after night, the glow grew stronger, and with it came a sound. A low hum, like a lullaby sung underwater. The villagers noticed too. They gathered at the riverbank, murmuring prayers and tossing flowers into the water. The elders said it was a sign. The river was restless. Someone had broken a rule. Someone had angered the spirits. But Adayeze felt no anger in the glow. She felt something else, something that made her heart ache with a longing she couldn't name. Before we continue this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Because what happens next will change everything. It happened on a morning when the sky was heavy with unspilled rain. Adayez had gone to the river to wash clothes, as she did every week. The water was cooler than usual, and the current moved sluggishly, as if the river itself were tired. She was kneeling at the edge, scrubbing fabric against a smooth stone, when she heard it. A sound like a child crying. At first, she thought it was coming from the village, but when she looked up, she realized the sound was coming from the water, not from the surface, but from beneath it. Adayeze froze. Every instinct told her to leave, to gather her things and walk away, but the crying didn't stop. It grew louder, more desperate, more human. And then she saw it, a shape in the water, small, pale, struggling, nodding. Without thinking, Adayeze waded in. The water soaked through her dress, cold and heavy. She reached down, her hands searching blindly, and felt something smooth and cool. She pulled, and the shape came free. It was a fish, but not like any fish she had ever seen. It was silver, almost translucent, with scales that shimmered like oil on water. And its eyes. Its eyes were too large, too aware, too human. The fish gasped in her hands, its mouth opening and closing. Adayeze's heart pounded. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what this was. And then the fish spoke. Not in words, in feeling. A wave of gratitude and sorrow, and something ancient washed over her, so overwhelming that her knees buckled. She stumbled back to the shore and gently placed the fish in the shallows, where the water was calmer. For a moment, nothing happened. The fish floated, still and silent. And then it began to change. The scales melted away like morning mist. The small body stretched and unfolded. Limbs appeared where fins had been. Hair, long and dark, spread across the water like ink. Within seconds, the fish was gone. In its place was a woman. She was beautiful, but not in the way humans are beautiful. Her beauty was sharp and strange, like something carved from the ocean floor. Her skin shimmered faintly, as if still wet. Her eyes were deep and fathomless, the color of water at night. And she was pregnant. Adayeze stared, unable to move, unable to speak. The woman rose from the water slowly, gracefully, as if gravity had no claim on her. She looked at Adayeze with an expression that was both grateful and grieving. When she spoke, her voice was like the river itself, soft, constant, ancient. "You saved me," the woman said. "You saved us both." Adayeze's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The woman stepped closer, water dripping from her hair, pooling at her feet. She placed a hand on Adayeze's shoulder, and the touch was cold but not unpleasant. It felt like being submerged in something safe. "You showed mercy when you had no reason to," the woman continued. "You gave without asking for anything in return. That is rare, rarer than you know." Adayeze finally found her voice. "What are you?" The woman smiled, sad and knowing. "I am what your people call Mammy Water. I am the river's daughter, and you, Adayeze, are the river's friend. I don't understand." "You will." The woman's hand moved to Adayeze's stomach, resting there gently. "Your womb has been silent for too long. Let me give you what you long for." Adayeze's breath caught. "A child? Yes. But not only yours, not only human." The woman's eyes searched hers. The child will belong to both our worlds. She will carry my blessing and your love. She will be a bridge. What does that mean? The woman didn't answer directly. She leaned close, her lips near Adaeze's ear, and whispered something in a language Adaeze didn't know. The words sank into her like rain into dry soil. When Adaeze opened her eyes, the woman was gone. The river was still. The only evidence of what had happened was the warmth spreading through her belly. Faint but undeniable. That night, Adaeze dreamed of a child with eyes like deep water. 3 months later, Adaeze knew she was pregnant. The village was shocked. Some whispered that it was a miracle. Others whispered that it was something else, something unnatural. How could a woman who had been alone for years suddenly carry a child? Adaeze didn't explain. She couldn't. How could she tell them about the woman in the river, the fish that became human, the blessing whispered in a language older than names? She simply smiled and placed her hand on her belly and said, "The river has been kind to me." The pregnancy was easy. Too easy, some said. Adaeze never felt sick. She never felt weak. In fact, she felt stronger than she had in years. Her skin glowed. Her hair grew thick and shining, and wherever she walked, the air seemed fresher. The world seemed softer, but strange things began to happen. Water behaved differently around her. When she washed her hands, the water would cling to her skin longer than it should, as if reluctant to leave. When it rained, the drops seemed to fall more gently on her than on anyone else. And at night, she could hear the river singing. Not loudly, but clearly. A lullaby she had never heard, but somehow knew. The villagers noticed. They whispered, they watched, but they kept their distance, because even in their suspicion there was fear. Fear of the river, fear of what it might do if they interfered. Adaeze didn't care. She had waited so long for this. She had prayed, she had wept, she had bargained with every god she knew, and now, finally, she was going to be a mother. When the child was born, it was on a night when the moon was full and the river was calm. The labor was quick, almost painless, and when the baby girl took her first breath, the sound was like a wave breaking gently on the shore. Adaeze held her daughter and wept. Not from pain, but from overwhelming love. The baby's eyes were large and dark, the color of deep water. Her skin was smooth and soft, with a faint shimmer that caught the light. And when she cried, the sound was strange and beautiful, like something sung underwater. Adaeze named her Neoma. It meant good mother in her language, because that's what Adaeze wanted to be. A good mother, a protector, a guide. She had no idea how much that name would come to mean. Neoma grew quickly. Too quickly, some said. By the time she was 3, she spoke in full sentences. By 4, she could swim better than grown men. By 5, she knew things she shouldn't know. The names of plants no one had taught her. The patterns of tides. The songs of birds that didn't live near the village. But she was also gentle. Shy. She rarely played with other children, preferring to sit by the river and watch the water move. She would hum to herself, low and constant, and fish would gather at her feet, circling slowly, as if listening. Adaeze loved her fiercely. She protected her from the villagers' stares, from their whispered questions. She told herself that Neoma was just different, special, gifted. She told herself the strangeness would fade as the child grew. It didn't. On Neoma's 7th birthday, everything changed. It started small. Neoma's shadow, which had always followed her like any normal shadow, began to move on its own. At first, Adaeze thought it was a trick of the light, but then she saw it clearly. The shadow didn't follow Neoma's movements. It lagged behind. It rippled, it moved like water. Then Neoma stopped eating regular food. She would only drink water. And not just any water, only water from the river. She would fill a cup and stare at it for long moments before drinking, as if listening to something within it. Her voice began to change too. When she spoke, there was an echo, faint but unmistakable. as if someone else were speaking with her, just beneath the surface of her words. And at night, she disappeared. Adeyeze would wake to find Naoma's bed empty. She would panic, searching the house, the village, calling her daughter's name. And every time, she would find Naoma at the river's edge, standing in the shallow water, staring at the moon's reflection. When Adeyeze asked her what she was doing, Naoma would smile and say, "She's calling me, Mama. She wants me to come home." "Who?" Adeyeze would ask, her heart pounding. "Who's calling you?" But Naoma never answered. She would only take her mother's hand and let herself be led back to bed, her skin cold and damp, her eyes distant. Adeyeze knew. Deep down, she had always known. The blessing had come with a price. And now, 7 years later, the river was coming to collect. It was on a night when the rain fell in sheets that the mermaid returned. Adeyeze had been watching Naoma sleep, her hand resting on her daughter's chest, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breath. She was terrified of losing her, terrified of what was happening. Terrified that she had made a terrible mistake 7 years ago when she saved that silver fish. And then she heard it. The voice. The same voice from 7 years ago, soft and ancient and impossibly sad. "Adeyeze." She looked up. Standing in the doorway, dripping with rain, was the woman from the river. She looked exactly the same. Ageless, shimmering. Her eyes filled with the weight of centuries. "Why are you here?" Adeyeze whispered, her voice shaking. "Because it's time," the woman said gently. "Time for what?" "For you to understand." The woman stepped closer, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the floor. She looked down at Naoma, and her expression softened with something that looked like love. "I didn't tell you everything that night," the woman said. "I couldn't. You wouldn't have understood. But now, you need to know the truth." Adeyeze's hands clenched into fists. "Tell me." The woman sat on the edge of the bed, her hand hovering over Naoma's sleeping form. "This child is not just yours. She is mine too. Not by blood, but by spirit. She carries a piece of the river within her, a piece of me." "Why?" Adeyeze's voice broke. "Why my daughter?" "Because I lost mine," the woman said quietly. Silence filled the room. Only the sound of rain against the roof. "I had a daughter once," the woman continued, her voice distant. "A long time ago. She was like Naoma, half human, half river. She lived between two worlds, loved by both. But humans feared her. They didn't understand. And one day, they took her from me. They drowned her in the very water that gave her life." Adeyeze's heart broke at the pain in the woman's voice. "I have lived with that loss for centuries," the woman said. "And when you saved me that day, when you showed kindness without fear, I knew. I knew you were different. I knew you could love a child like mine. So I gave you Naoma. Not to replace what I lost, but to heal it. To prove that love can exist between worlds." "But she's changing," Adeyeze said, tears streaming down her face. "She's disappearing." "She's not disappearing," the woman said gently. "She's becoming who she was always meant to be." "And what is that?" The woman looked at Adeyeze with eyes full of sorrow and hope. "A bridge between your world and mine, between fear and understanding, between loss and love." "Will I lose her?" The woman didn't answer immediately. She stood, her form shimmering in the dim light. "That depends. On what? On whether you can let her belong to both worlds, or whether you try to keep her in only one." And then she was gone. The room was empty except for the rain and the sleeping child and the mother, who now understood the impossible choice she had to make. If you're still listening, type, "I'm still listening," in the comments, so I know the river has carried you this far. Because what comes next is the hardest part. The part where love has to become sacrifice. The next morning, Adeyeze woke to find a mark on Naoma's wrist. It hadn't been there the night before. It was small, no bigger than a thumbprint, shaped like a droplet of water. It glowed faintly, a soft blue-green, like light filtering through deep water. When Adeyeze touched it, it was warm, and for a brief moment, she heard something. A voice. The mermaid's voice. She is claimed, by the river, by me, by destiny. Naoma woke and looked at the mark with wonder, not fear. She traced it with her finger and smiled. It's pretty, Mama. Adeyeze's heart shattered. Over the following days, the changes accelerated. Naoma's skin began to shimmer more visibly, especially when she was near water. Her eyes grew darker, deeper, until they looked like twin pools reflecting the night sky. And when she laughed, the sound echoed, as if she were laughing both in this world and another. The villagers began to avoid them, some out of fear, some out of reverence. Word spread that Adeyeze's daughter was spirit-touched, blessed, cursed. No one could agree which, but Adeyeze didn't care what they thought. She only cared about keeping her daughter safe. About finding a way to stop what was happening. She went to the elders. They told her to make offerings to the river. She did. Nothing changed. She went to the healers. They gave her herbs and charms. Nothing worked. She went to the priests. They told her to pray. She prayed until her voice was hoarse. But Naoma continued to change. And then, one night, the river rose. It wasn't a flood, not exactly. The water didn't rage or destroy. It simply rose, slowly, steadily, creeping up the banks, moving toward the village like something alive and purposeful. The villagers panicked. They gathered their children, their belongings, preparing to flee. But the water stopped at the edge of Adeyeze's house. It pooled there, lapping gently at the foundation, and went no further. Everyone knew what it meant. The river wanted something, or someone. That night, the mermaid appeared again. Not in Adeyeze's house, but at the river's edge, visible to everyone. She stood in the shallow water, glowing faintly, her presence undeniable. The villagers gathered at a distance, murmuring prayers, clutching charms. But they didn't approach. They didn't dare. Adeyeze walked to the water's edge, her heart pounding, and Naoma followed, her small hand in her mother's. The mermaid looked at them with eyes full of ancient sorrow. It's time, Adeyeze. Time for what? Adeyeze's voice was steady, though her hands shook. Time for you to choose. Choose what? Whether Naoma stays with you, in your world, and slowly loses herself, or whether she comes with me and becomes who she was meant to be. Adeyeze's breath caught. You're asking me to give her up. I'm asking you to set her free. She's my daughter. She is, and she always will be, but she is also the river's daughter, and the river is calling her home. Naoma looked up at her mother, her eyes wide and questioning. Mama, I hear her. I hear her singing. It's so beautiful. Adeyeze knelt down, her hands cupping her daughter's face. Do you want to go? Naoma hesitated. I don't want to leave you. But do you want to go? Naoma's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I feel like part of me is already there. Like I've been missing something my whole life, and now I know what it is. But I love you, Mama. I don't want to hurt you. Adeyeze pulled her daughter close, holding her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feeling of her small body in her arms. She had known this moment was coming. She had known from the beginning, deep down, that Naoma was never fully hers. But knowing didn't make it easier. Adeyeze stood, her decision made. She looked at the mermaid, her voice strong despite the tears streaming down her face. If she goes with you, will she be safe? Yes. Will she be loved? More than you can imagine. Will she remember me? The mermaid's expression softened. Always. And you will never lose her, not truly, because love doesn't live in one world or another. It lives in the heart. Adeyeze nodded slowly. She turned to Naoma and knelt down one last time. Listen to me, my beautiful girl. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You taught me what it means to love without fear. And now, I have to let you be who you truly are. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. Neoma's tears fell freely. Mama, I'm scared. I know, but you're also brave. Braver than anyone I've ever known. And wherever you go, whatever you become, you will always be my daughter. Always. They held each other for a long moment, mother and child, human and spirit, two hearts beating as one. And then Adayeze let go. Naoma walked slowly toward the water, her steps hesitant but sure. The mermaid extended her hand, and Naoma took it. The moment their hands touched, light flooded the riverbank, soft and golden and warm. Naoma's form began to shimmer. Her legs fused together, becoming a tail. Her skin glowed brighter, scales appearing like jewels. Her hair grew longer, darker, flowing around her like water. But her eyes remained the same. Her mother's eyes. She looked back one last time, and her voice echoed across the water. I love you, Mama. I love you too, Adayeze whispered. And then they dove. Mother and daughter, mermaid and child. They disappeared beneath the surface, leaving only ripples behind. The river began to recede. Slowly, peacefully, it returned to its banks. The village was untouched. The danger passed. But Adayeze remained at the water's edge, staring at the place where her daughter had vanished, her heart both broken and whole. Days passed. Weeks. The village returned to normal, but Adayeze did not. She spent every evening at the river, sitting on the same rock, watching the water, listening. And one night, she heard it. A voice. Naoma's voice, rising from the depths, singing. It was the lullaby Adayeze used to sing to her when she was a baby. But now, it sounded different. Richer, fuller. As if it were being sung by 100 voices at once. Adayeze closed her eyes and listened, and for the first time since Neneoma left, she smiled. Over time, strange things began to happen. Fishermen reported seeing a young mermaid near the shore, watching them with curious eyes. Children claimed they heard laughter coming from the water. And on full moons, villagers swore they saw two figures swimming together, one older, one younger, moving through the water like light through glass. Adayeze never saw her daughter again. Not in the way she once had, but she felt her, in the warmth of the sun on the water, in the sound of the river at night, in the dreams that came to her, vivid and real, where Neoma swam free and whole and happy. And she knew that her sacrifice had not been a loss. It had been a gift. The greatest gift a mother could give, the gift of freedom. Years later, when Adayeze was old and her hair had turned silver, she still visited the river every evening. And one night, as she sat on her rock, watching the water, she saw something shimmer in the shallows. A young woman rose from the water. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin glowed faintly, her eyes were deep and knowing, and she smiled. Mama, Neoma said softly. Adayeze's breath caught. She stood, her legs shaky, her heart pounding. Neoma? It's me. They embraced, and Adayeze felt the years melt away. Her daughter was grown now, tall and strong and beautiful, but she was still her daughter. I never forgot you, Neoma said. I never could. I never forgot you either. They sat together by the water, mother and daughter, human and spirit. And they talked about the years that had passed, about the life Neoma lived beneath the waves, about the love that had never faded. And when the sun began to rise, Neoma stood. I have to go, Mama, but I'll come back. I'll always come back. I know, Adayeze said, tears streaming down her face. I know. Neoma kissed her mother's forehead, and then she dove, disappearing into the water, leaving Adayeze alone on the shore. But not lonely, never lonely, because the river remembered, and so did she. The river remembers every kindness, every promise, every tear, every sacrifice. Adaeze lived the rest of her days in peace, knowing that her daughter was whole, that her love had been enough, that the blessing she received was not a curse, but a bridge between worlds, between fear and understanding, between loss and love. And on full moons, villagers still hear laughter from the River of Whispers. Soft, warm, eternal. The sound of a mother and daughter who proved that love doesn't live in one world or another. It lives in the heart. Do you believe mermaids still watch over Africa's rivers? Would you help one if she called your name? Have you ever felt something call to you from the water? Something you couldn't explain? Comment below. Share this story with someone who believes in magic. And subscribe for more tales that heal the heart. Because every story we tell is a reminder that love is the strongest force in any world. Thank you for listening. Until the next story, may you always have the courage to love without fear, and the wisdom to let go when love demands it. The river remembers, and so will you.